Good evening and welcome to another edition of Mdread Television. Tonight I'd like to speak to you about the recent news that the good people of Ireland have decided to reject the European Union's Lisbon Treaty proposals, which for many critics is too similar to the EU Constitution proposals that were scrapped effectively a couple of years ago because the people that took part in referendums rejected it. And I would assume that was because it gives too much power away from the independent nations to the European Parliament and the EU Commissioners. Personally, I think the EU does need reform, but I don't believe in reform as in political or economic union, which I think is a grave mistake. I think it needs reform. It needs to be smashed to bits, effectively. It has become a monster, and it is effectively out of control. I think we should, personally, I would like to see it go back to being trading cooperative and with safety legislation in manufactured products, to have safety standards for manufactured products and stuff. Now that would be more effective, but instead what we are seeing is effectively a growing dictatorship within the European Union with its 27 countries that are members of it. I think it's the wrong way. You see, the problem is, it seems that all the politicians seem to be pro-Europe, and there seems to be a reason behind this. I think they got a lot to gain, as the people do not. There is a real danger that if we go further into Europe, they will reform it, but they will reform it for the benefit of the multinational corporate companies, not for the public. You know, people complain about, the right-wing press in particular, complain about, oh, it's going to be a socialist Europe, you know, or a communist Europe even. No, it's going to be completely opposite. I can assure you, it'll be in the interest of big businesses and for the few. It will not be in the interest of the many. This whole idea of a European Union is a disaster. It is a disaster waiting to happen. Not only will it be bad for the economy, or for the people and their individual freedoms and liberties, it will also be very bad in terms of international relations. In particular with the United States. For all its faults with the current American government, I feel it is better to be closer to the United States than it would be to, say, China. Because at least the United States have some kind of democracy left, even though that is being undermined by their government, than to kowtow to a country that has one of the most appalling human rights records on the planet. You see, the problem is, the Irish people, thank God, you know, I feel we ought to raise a pint of Guinness today for the Irish people, who have decided, who saw it right through it, and saw for what it was, a pack of lies and complete deception, to drag us further into integration into Europe, to undermine our sovereignty, and more seriously, to undermine NATO, which is actually more serious. Because to undermine NATO means we do not have a solid sort of defence structure within the Western countries, which is sadly necessary. I'd rather it wasn't, but it is necessary to have that solid defence structure there in order to prevent wars from happening, not to cause them. What I mean by undermining NATO, the European Union want their own army. That is the last thing I think should happen. It'll become like some kind of monster, you know, some, you know, great big armed force, you know, army, and it'll be monstrous and centralised, and it will not have any sort of independent national independence, which I actually believe reduces war because it means there's none of this collective craziness going on. So I say reduce Europe, reduce it, and I mean reduce it, get back our borders, controlling our borders properly, even though that sounds terrible and bureaucratic. Wouldn't that prevent terrorism? Wouldn't it stop terrorists in their track trying to get across Europe to do their dastardly deeds, whatever they may be doing? Wouldn't it also reduce drug smuggling and other such criminal and human trafficking? I mean, we should be going back with Europe, not going forward and integrating more and being more centralising. We should be going backwards in order to protect our borders, to protect the European population, to make it fairer for all those that live here at the moment, to have a proper immigration system which is fair to everybody and to all, and to restrict the movement within Europe but protect the basic rights. That's another day, but try and work it out. You see, the thing is, we must be very careful. We are tiptoeing into an integrated Europe where our freedoms and our liberties are going to be even more undermined than they are now, because once they've got us wheeled in, and then they can bring in the reforms that will look really popular, less bureaucracy, but in reality it will only serve the large corporate companies and for the few wealthier individuals. Unfortunately, what has happened under the Bush administration in the United States is a classic case point of view, and that to me could be very dangerous. Actually, it sets a very dangerous precedent. So my advice is to wreck this treaty to bits, smash it to the ground, and reduce the influence of Europe, and to bring back sovereignty and power to the national parliaments of each respective countries, and to preserve and to protect our liberties. Because if we don't, we could be waking up one morning to something what Hitler wanted, 60 or 70 Europe under a dictatorship, which is what I'm fearing which might happen in the next 10 to 15 years if we are not careful. Okay, that is all I've got to say for tonight's broadcast on Mdread Television. I hope, please feel free to comment and be critical even. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.